Hey everybody, this is Kajah from San Mateo County Libraries. Today I'm going to show you how to get started with your Instant Pot. Right now we're in my kitchen and this is the place where I love to be. I love to cook. It's one of my hobbies as well as a survival skill. And one of my number one instruments I have is this Dutch oven over here. The other thing I use even more is my Instant Pot. Now, I like to talk to people about cooking, and when I talk to them about it, a lot of them like to say this: I got an Instant Pot for Mother's Day, Black Friday, whatever it is, but I'm just not sure how to use it. I don't know where to get started with it. There's so many buttons, it's kind of complicated. I get it. It can look like kind of an intimidating machine. After all, it is a multi-function or multi-use cooker. But the fact is, you only need two buttons. You need the saute button and you need the pressure cook button. Everything else is an extension of the pressure cook button. Now, with the Instant Pot, I use it for basic stuff. I use it to make my beans from scratch, or not from scratch, but if the beans are dry, I can spend half an hour and those beans will be soft. Over our components. First, you got to start with a power cord because this is an electric item. Now, if my Instant Pot doesn't look like the freshest daisy in the lot, that's because I use this thing every day, often multiple times a day. We make potatoes for breakfast, we make beans for lunch, and we have rice or quinoa ready for dinner. So it's great for all of those things, and we often do use it for every meal. Now, one of the things people freak out about are the buttons on here. I'm going to go over that in a second, but suffice to say, this is the actual Instant Pot base. This is the thing that actually does the cooking, as you might be able to tell from the filament in there. We have the pot itself. This is the pot that actually does the cooking. These are made of stainless steel, and obviously it's been through a lot. I've tried to get those stains out of there, but I just don't have time, honestly, to really scrub it the way I want to, and believe me, I've tried. But again, we use this thing about 3 times a day. Now, I have a 6-quart pot here, so it's sufficient for 2 or 3 people. If you have a big family, maybe you want to get the 8-quart one, or maybe making a bunch of rice is enough for you, or a bunch of quinoa is perfect for your purposes. Now, my Instant Pot also came with what's called a trivet. We essentially use this to steam items when we want to steam potatoes, when we want to steam broccoli and we don't want it to sit in the water. We put that trivet in there. I actually love using this for sausages. It'll steam hot dogs. I'm vegan, so they're vegan hot dogs, but nonetheless, they steam really well. And to steam those dogs, it only takes about 1 to 2 minutes, which is pretty useful. One of the most important pieces you have here is the lid. The lid of the Instant Pot is what seals in all of that vapor. And if you take a look over here, we have our handle. And then we have this little notch on the end over here. I like to call this the tooth. And it has 3 really important components. It has a release button. It has a floating valve, or what I like to call the buoy, because this buoy rises up and down. And then we have the actual steam release valve. Now these 3 things all have to do with building pressure and letting out steam. And they're very useful because this is how we're going to be able to make sure our pot is sealed. Also, this should come with your pot. This is an extra sealant ring or a sealing ring. This fits on the bottom rack. You see these little 4 metal notches. They hold the sealing ring in place, and this sealing ring is part of what's going to help you retain the vapor inside your Instant Pot. What we have is the water catch, And if you have a rice cooker or are familiar with one, you're probably pretty familiar with this. This fits on the back of the Instant Pot. Now there's a little notch in the Instant Pot. That's where your lid goes. And the rice is going to fit right over this. It kind of hangs over here. And if you can, as you can see, it just kind of sits there to collect water. So those are all the component parts of the Instant Pot. What I'm going to do now is show you only two of the buttons, the only two buttons you'll ever really need on the Instant Pot. And then I'm going to cook something for you so you can see those buttons in action. So let's take my pot and get it on the base. Now those two buttons I'm talking about are saute and pressure cook. Saute and pressure cook are essentially the two main modes of cooking. What saute does is essentially fry your food. So it will heat up the Instant Pot and you will not need a lid to saute. In fact, you'll want the lid off so you can smell the onions and the garlic cooking away. But what it'll do is it'll get it really hot. So let's take a look at that. Let's press the saute button. Okay. Now that 30 minutes means that you have 30 minutes to saute your food. It doesn't let you saute more than 30 minutes because it will get too hot. The Instant Pot gets very, very hot. In fact, the pan will be sufficiently hot to fry onions in about 1 minute. Now, the manufacturer suggests that you wait until it says hot. That'll take you about 2 minutes, and we'll see what happens when it goes to hot. And that's probably more for braising meat or, browning your chicken a little bit before you add the water pressure and start pressure cooking it. But for our purposes, we can throw in some oil and some onions and maybe a little bit of garlic after 1 minute, because it will be sufficiently hot to brown those onions and garlic. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes, and now we see that the Instant Pot reads hot. Remember, we're sauteing right now, so this is where we would put our onions and garlic in here. At this point, I would add oil, and then I would add onions and garlic, or as they say in fancy cooking magazines, are aromatics. So we're not going to do that right now, though, because I want to show you the other functions of the Instant Pot. Okay, we've done the saute function. Now we're going to switch over to pressure cook. So I'm going to cancel that. Now I poured a little water in here to cool it down, but you see the Instant Pot got pretty hot pretty quickly. But I've canceled it because now I want to pressure cook. In order to pressure cook, I simply press the button, pressure cook, and I select the time. One thing you might want to note, pressure will always default to high. That's a very good thing. You always want the pressure on high unless this recipe specifically says you want to put it on low. For example, rice, if you wanted to cook it in your Instant Pot, might be something you want to put on a low setting. Otherwise, you definitely want to err on keeping your pressure level, which is this button, at high. So just so you can see that, I pressed pressure cook, and now it's allowing me to switch between, press the up button, switch between high and low. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be high for most of your cooking. Now, you know you need to put your pressure cook over here on high, and it will default to high. But what's this thing over here? It says normal. Now, if I press my pressure cook, it's going to adjust to more, less, and normal. Basically, that's sort of an intensity of your cook setting, and you'll be able to do that for any of your buttons. For example, let's say I wanted to do steaming, and again, steaming is essentially another version of a pressure cook. It's just going to have it on a really high intensity pressure cook. Again, when you look at recipes, when you need to focus on your cooking, the only thing you need to worry about is this thing right here, the pressure cook, and the pressure level. Make sure that's set at high. Otherwise, all this other stuff, you can press it and use it, but it's not your most important button. The only ones you need to worry about are those other two. But if I press the different functions, it switches between less, normal, and more. So out of saute and pressure cook, we've learned how to make basic food. We can fry things up and we can steam them away with lots of speed. So for now, let's try cooking something. I want to saute up some onions and garlic, and then I will put some lentils in for a steam cook. The onions and garlic will add a lot of nice savory flavor and aromas to my lentils. And then after I'm done frying those up and browning them, I will take those lentils and put them in with the right amount of water. I'm preparing my ingredients right now, but we're just going to go through the same process. I'm going to prepare my ingredients, then I'm going to show you the saute function using the aromatics, and then I will show you the pressure cook function using the green lentils we have here with 3 cups of water. So you can see how easy the process is. And also I will have some delicious lentils by the end of this. I have my food prepared and I am ready to saute my onions and garlic. I have a little bit of avocado oil here, and let's get that saute function started again. We'll wait for it to go on. Boop, boop, a doop. We only have 30 seconds. And then let's wait a couple minutes for it to get hot. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes and our saute function has reached hot now. Now I only have one hand. Normally I'd measure out this expensive avocado oil, but we're only gonna need a little bit. That should be more than enough. And then we're gonna take our onions. This is always a delicate balancing act. Okay, now normally I'd use a wooden spoon, but I forgot to prepare that, and time is of the essence here, so I'm using this. But luckily, our Instant Pot is stainless steel, so I'm not too worried about scratching it up. You don't have to worry about a non-stick surface. One nice thing about sauteing in the Instant Pot, in addition to just saving you some dishes, is you have really high walls over here, so that splash damage you might get from the oil is minimized. That's the same reason I actually like to do my my frying in the Dutch oven, because you have those oven guards on there, because the walls of the pot are so high. We're just going to let those sit for a bit as we wait for just the right moment to put in our garlic. Now these onions are almost getting too brown. Normally I don't let the Instant Pot get that hot, but that's okay because we're just putting these in lentils. So I'm going to add my spices really quickly here. And then I think it's time to add the garlic as well. Now I'm going to need both hands to do that. Ooh, these onions look delicious. So I'm going to add our dry lentils. Now these are dry. And remember, you can cook your legumes from dry. It's totally fine. You just need to add more time to it. So I'm going to cancel our saute function now. And then we're going to add our water. Now, water ratios aren't quite as big of a deal with beans, but I looked up a basic lentil recipe, and it looked like for 1 cup of lentils, we have 3 cups of water. Now, that's the normal ratio you'd probably use if you were doing it on your stovetop. There we go. But in some cases, for example, if you're doing beans, the amount of water really depends on how much or whether or not your beans are dry. So if I were doing 2 cups of black beans, for example, I might use 6 cups of water, because those dry beans are going to absorb a lot of water as they go through the 25-minute cooking process. But for these quick lentils, these should only take about 8 to 10 minutes. Now, when you have your Instant Pot, you will get something included in the instructions called the cooking timetables. Now, I suggest you keep this document even if you're the type of person who likes to throw away their instructions, because this has timetables for all the different basic staples here. We know how long we need to cook large whole potatoes, small whole potatoes. Now, with stuff like this, generally, if you put a cup of water in there, you are good to go. I mentioned black beans. Where was that? I mentioned black beans from dry. That's what the D stands for. It's about 20 to 25 minutes. If you do soak your beans, it takes about 6 to 8 minutes. But we're doing lentils, which is right below. So our green lentils from dry, as it says here, takes about 8 to 10 minutes. And of course, for the soak, it's not applicable because you don't really need to soak lentils. Okay, we have everything inside there. We're gonna seal our lid first. So I'm gonna take the handle. Remember that tooth I talked about earlier? Well, we're gonna fit that into the groove at the back of the Instant Pot. We'll start on the left. And then you heard that cool sound it made? I'm just gonna pivot this pot to the right so that it locks into this part of the groove. Boo-ba-doo. Now, it's locked right now because I have the Instant Pot Duo Nova, which is a pretty nice Instant Pot. It's about $10 more than the normal one. If you didn't have a Duo Nova or one of the ones that doesn't do self-locking, you would have to remember to click this release valve button forward. So this locks when I push it forward and it releases when I press it down. So now the valve is open. Of course, we don't want to cook our legumes with an open valve because we'll lose all the steam. So we want to make sure we lock this up again. Again, when mine pivots this way, it automatically locks. You may have a model that doesn't do that. So just be really sure that you check and make sure this is locked because we're about to do some pressure cooking and we need to retain that heat. Now we know that we have to go back to pressure cook. We're gonna press the pressure cook. Of course, it defaults to high, that's what we want. And then we need 8 to 10 minutes. Let's keep it at 9. And I'm gonna keep it at normal because I like my legumes to be soft, but not too soft. So somewhere in between normal works. Now, I'm not gonna press any confirm or start button. I just leave it alone. You notice it says on, it hasn't started a timer. Now, this is one of the things about the Instant Pot that isn't the best thing. It always takes 5 to 10 minutes to build pressure. The Instant Pot is a pressure cooker essentially, and in order to do its job, it has to build that pressure, and so it has to work. And in order for it to work, it has to create all this pressure. It's tightly sealed. We got this locked, but now it's building that pressure. And that's why no matter what, whatever you're cooking in here, you have to make sure there's some sort of liquid. Whether you have marinara in there with the pasta or it's vegetable broth, or like in this case, just plain old water, you gotta make sure there's some sort of liquid because the Instant Pot needs that liquid to do its thing. If you don't have liquid, it will be probably safe, but it'll just say food burn, and you might have to clean the heck out of your pot. You don't want to have to do that, so just make sure you always have some sort of liquid going on. We have a very special guest. Hello, how are you doing, you lovely creature?
Hi, I'm doing great. My name is Astra, and I just want to talk about how I use potatoes in the Instant Pot. So I'm showing a couple different potatoes here. I'm going to focus on this potato because this is my favorite potato to use for making hash browns and home fries. It can either be Yukon Gold or a russet potato, but what I would do is I would add a half a cup to a cup of water in the Instant Pot. I would cut this in half and I would put them in the Instant Pot and parboil them. So that means we just want to get them a little steam so they soften up enough to where you can penetrate them with a fork, but not too soft to where they become mashed potatoes. So I think a good use for that would be to put them in the Instant Pot for about maybe 5 minutes and then take them out. Let them cool off for another maybe 5-10 minutes, and then when you can pick them up with your hand and it doesn't, hurt you. You can grate those or chop them up and put them in a skillet. And it's a really easy and delicious thing that you can do on the weekend to make like home style hash browns.
So you're saying that you cook the potatoes halfway and then you use that to kind of mold them and shred them up to make hash browns and do different potato things.
Exactly. So sometimes I even just put them and parboil them in the Instant Pot just to have extra potatoes to use during the week, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but my busy schedule doesn't allow me to have tons of potato making time during the week. So,
well, thank you for sharing your potato story with us, and I just want to say I love you. Okay, thank you. As it's building pressure, we see our buoy or our release valve kind of raising itself now. So that's how we can tell it's almost. Our Instant Pot came to pressure, and we have 5 minutes left. Remember, originally I think we set about 9 minutes. So our Instant Pot came to pressure and it started counting down. Now, when it gets to 0, we have 2 options. We can either do a quick release or we can do a natural release. Left on our cooking time, it's gonna make a really chimey sound once it starts, so you'll know your cooking time is over. Now, this is gonna require a quick release, which is great because we're filming with a camera and 0, 0, woohoo! Happy New Year. Okay, so the quick release is very cinematic. You want to make sure nobody is standing in the way of the quick release because it shoots a fountain of steam. Usually that steam is not that hot, but nonetheless, you do not want someone to be shot in the face with a jet of steam. So try to avoid that, and we will do our quick release. Now, if this were another type of food, maybe beans, then we might have to do a natural release. Now, a natural release is where I just wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't press anything. I would just let this timer maybe run up to 15 or 20 minutes so that the steam naturally releases from the sides over here. It's very slowly coming out. What you'll notice is that the timer starts counting up from 0 because you do want to know how long after you have zeroed out that your things have been sitting in there. Right now, the lentils are reabsorbing the liquid, which is good, that's fine, but we're going to do our quick release. Get ready. So I won't be able to take this lid off until the pressure has fully released from the Instant Pot. And now we hear the buoy go down, so we can take it off. One thing too you might want to be aware of, do not touch these metal parts while it's cooking because it does get pretty hot, and that's why they tell you to leave this label on there, because this metal part gets pretty spicy, but the sides, those usually aren't too bad. Now here we have some cooked lentils. Those look delicious. If you like lentils. If you don't, well, I don't know how to help you. So it's still a little watery, so we could leave the lentils in there to reabsorb the water as we stir it, or we can just close the lid. Now, if you want to, you can cook it some more. That's totally fine. Let's get it on there. And then you let the pressure build up, and then you can, let's see. And right now it says lid because my lid is not totally shut. It's letting me know that I need to close it again if I want to just let the steam sit in there. Okay, so I can just let it steam in there. I could cancel this and add a couple minutes, or I could just strain my Instant Pot, the legumes from my Instant Pot in some water. You can also set it at 0, which I always thought was pretty cool if you just want to do a really good cook where you let the pressure build. But essentially, our lentils are done, and we can add it to whatever we're gonna eat. Cancel. Now, our special guest has come back for us, and we're going to ask her to test out the lentils. Would you like to give it a test?
I was going to use this one.
Lentils came out pretty good.
It is muy delicioso.
So I hope this helps you feel more comfortable about using your Instant Pot. Maybe you'll take it out of that closet, plug it in, and give it a go. I want to thank you for joining me today. You can go to smcl.org for more videos. You can go to Hoopla Digital to download books that are about the Instant Pot and other multifunction cookers. You can go to Axis 360. We have a lot of e-resources. Just go to smcl.org. I'm about to jump into a program with Lynn and Debbie to do some drawing. Please come, stay tuned, and join us. Bye!